morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is the Friday news dump. We have a lot of big news to tell you. A lot of stuff are going on before the weekend. So you don't have to worry about it. We're going to tell you about it. You can go off and have a joyous, good weekend. You know, go have a picnic. Go swimming. I don't know what people are doing in May. Tend your garden. Because you already know what's happening, all for the rest of the week. This is Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look up our stories 10 to 15 minutes before we start. We have DCs and technical difficulties because this is a two-man show, and we've just rolled out of bed to tell you all these stories. So, make sure you're ready with a cup of coffee yourself for these headlines. Today on Before Coffee, Ukraine says it's uncovered a Hungarian espionage network. 2 suspects have been arrested.
Okay, and we have a new pope, and he's an American, and no, it's not Diaper Donny. They wanted somebody that actually read the Bible. And plus, the Amtrak Watch Dogs says Railroad's Northeast region has a troubling workforce culture.
France and Poland signed a treaty in Nancy to strengthen ties.
Updating a story we did last week, the Venus probe from the Soviet Union that's been there for a long time is due to fall to Earth today. Plus, we're going to update our Steve Buscemi story from a couple of weeks ago about the Big Lebowski Theory, endorsed by Jeff Bridges.
In culture news, ban this foreign filth. Can cinema really threaten national security?
And it's National Sleepover Day. So if you got someplace you want to sleep tonight, tonight's to do it. Anyway, it's May 9th, 2025 on Before Coffee.
We are ready to finish off this Friday, finish off this week, and hopefully bring in the good weather for the weekend. That would be nice because it's been cold all week for me. I don't like it being this cold.
Yes. I like it being like I like it a nice 60 degrees. That way you're not running.
Yeah, that for me that's not nice. That's cold.
The bugs aren't attacking you every night. It's still that time of the year before all the mosquitoes are out.
Nah, give it to me sweaty and miserable. That's how I like it.
You just pour water on you all day and you're happy.
Yeah, I mean I sweat so easily I don't even need help with water at all. Okay, let's roll our segue wheel for this first story. The rolling wheel. Give me a haiku or die.
Ooh.
That is your first segue.
I don't think that die part
should be easy enough to do, as long as you can count. Ukraine has uncovered a espionage network from Hungary. This is by Justin Spike and Ilya Novikov on AP News. Coming out of Kyiv, Ukraine's main security agency said Friday it had arrested 2 people on suspicion of spying for Hungary by gathering intelligence on Ukraine's military in the west of the country. In a statement, the Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, said the 2 suspects, both former members of the Ukraine military, had been detained and faced charges of treason, which is punishable by life imprisonment. It was the first time in Ukraine's history that a Hungarian espionage operation had been discovered, the statement said. The activities of the suspected spies were focused on western Ukraine section of Zakarpattia, which borders Hungary, and is home to a sizable Hungarian ethnic minority. Ooh, I see. Okay, so here's a little small history lesson on Europe, right? Borders were made up by France in, I don't know, the 1400s, okay? Before that, people were just like, yeah, I live in that town there, and somebody just told me I live in Hungary because of that, but I didn't know, because I just live in a town. I live in a village, in the middle of nowhere. I didn't know I lived in France, until some king told me I lived there and asked me to give me taxes, or give them taxes even. So, yeah, there's going to be ethnic minorities all over the place in Europe because borders are not real. They're not a physical thing you can just see. And the problem with this is that's why Russia invaded Ukraine, or one of the excuses they made anyways. There's an ethnic minority of Russians living in Crimea and they're being bullied by Ukraine. So we need to save them. And then later, Ukrainian people are actually just Russians, so we need to save them from themselves because they are being bullied by those people who think Ukraine is a real thing. So, of course, it's reasonable for Ukraine to be very suspicious on Hungary sending out spies in the place where there is a sizable ethnic minority of Hungarians, because they might use that as an excuse to be like, well, we're invading that place because you have Hungarians, they're being bullied by you, and they don't have rights. Budapest and Kyiv have clashed over the rights of Hungarians in Zakarpattia, for most of which was part of Hungary until the end of World War I. Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó did not directly deny the allegations of Hungarian espionage cell operating Ukraine, but suggested that the SBU's claims could be classified as anti-Hungarian propaganda. Okay, you gotta keep your eye on Hungary because they want to be Russia. I urge everyone to exercise caution against any news that appears in Ukrainian propaganda, Szijjártó told a news conference on Friday, today, the 9th of May. If we get any details on official information, then we can deal with it. Well, the thing is, you can't, if you have an espionage cell, you can't reveal that you have an espionage cell. Because you know what that does? It puts all of your spies in danger. You know, you don't want to sell out your own spies and put them under a bus. What you need to do is extradite them before it's too late and they find out about your whole other 10-man operation. Hungary, a member of a NATO and European Union. Yeah, exactly. Has taken an adversarial approach to Ukraine since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, refusing to supply Kyiv with weaponry or to allow it to transfer across Hungarian territory. The Hungarian government, led by Prime Minister Viktor Orban, has also threatened to block EU financial assistance to Ukraine, argued against sanctions on Russia, and oppose Ukraine's eventual membership in the EU. Orban is widely seen as having the warmest relations with Russian President Vladimir Putin among EU leaders, though he has acknowledged that the war was a result of Russian aggression. You can't deny that. Russia did attack Ukraine. The SBU said both suspected spies were overseen by a career officer of Hungary's military intelligence, whose identity has also been established, so they know the spy master. The officer supplied the network with cash and a special device for communications to support the operation, and had attempted to recruit other individuals into the network, the SBU said. Ooh, they're trying to turn people, yeah, that's why you can arrest them for treason. Hey, you want to spy in your country for Hungary? Oh, wow, it sounds like it pays a lot. Yeah, until you're in jail for treason and probably executed by a firing squad. The Hungarian Defense Military and Military National Security Service did not immediately respond to requests for a comment. And this Spike reported this from Budapest, Hungary. So there is your news of a suspected Hungarian espionage network, which, Hungary doesn't have enough things going for it. I wish there was, the thing is, I want Hungary to get kicked out of the EU, because I think they're a threat to the EU. I genuinely believe, in long term, historically, we will see, Hungary was a threat to the EU that whole time, But I know as soon as you create a system, a framework of kicking somebody out of the EU without their, right, because Brexit, that was them leaving, right? Everyone who's left has left because they wanted to leave. But this is forcibly removing somebody from a union because they're a threat to the union.
I think they'd have more influence. I just think they'd have more influence with them in the European Union. And, Orban can't live forever. I'm just saying. I mean, they might get a guy worse.
They might get somebody who's like, you know what, we're leaving the EU.
It's anybody that rigs the elections, I was like. Anybody that rigs the election, including Trump. The United States election was rigged. Make no mistake. If all the votes were counted that were actually filled out, Harris won. And not by a lot, but she won.
Yeah.
She definitely won the popular vote. They threw out ballots. They threw out provisional ballots. They stopped people from voting. There was bomb threats in Georgia, dozens of them. So people just stopped going back to the polls because there's a bomb threat. So anyway, haiku time.
Yeah, haiku time.
Spies are everywhere. Spies are everywhere. In Ukraine from Hungary, espionage thrives. There you go. Do you have a second story? Or
No, that's
no, you
it.
don't?
I actually have long enough
Okay.
stories that I don't need to tag 15 together to get through the news.
Now it's time for Spin the Mighty Wheel for our 2 stories. One's kind of short that most of the people already know, but we're going to cover it anyway.
All right, let's spin that wheel. Oh, now are we rolling it twice?
What happened?
It rolled twice. Segway! Hypothetical. I'm gonna have to figure out a hypothetical for
All right.
you.
Our first story is from Yahoo.com. Kate Murphy, Pope Leo the 14th elected. Yeah, he took Leo as his name. Live updates after Cardinal Prevost named first American pontiff by conclave. A new pope has been elected. Robert Francis Prevost, the first American pope, has been selected by the papal conclave to take over as leader of the 1.4 billion member Roman Catholic Church. The new pontiff, who has taken over the name Leo the 14th, was chosen on day 2 of the conclave. It came over 2 weeks after the death of Pope Francis at the age of 88. Prevost is 69, is a Chicago-born cardinal who's previously served in Peru for 2 decades. They always pick these guys when they're about to fade. You ever wonder about that? Like John Paul II was, I think it was in the 50s, right? That's why he was there for so long. Just after 6 p.m. local time in Vatican City, noon Eastern time, white smoke rose from Sistine Chapel chimney as bells rang, which symbolized the conclave had reached a 2/3 majority necessary for a new pope. Previous votes, which resulted in black smoke coming from the chapel, meant that a vote was inconclusive and not reached a decision. The papal conclave began on May 7th with 133 electors, the largest number of voting cardinals in history. So you get the most votes in history, presumably, I suppose. A crowd of more than 10,000 people had gathered in St. Peter's Square on Thursday to await the results of the votes. The newly elected pope appeared on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, where he was introduced to the world. You got a hypothetical or that, or should I go on to my next story?
Hypothetical, I think we kind of talked about this before the show. I think, I guess in my hypothetical scenario, the only reason this has occurred, right, is that they're expecting this American Pope to have some sort of influence over America's politics, maybe rein them in, something. I don't know once they rein them in, what they're gonna do with that, right? But the idea is they want to get their fingers in the pie that is the United States, and the best way to do that is to have an American on the top of your head, right? That's
and you mixed a metaphor while you were at it. Way to go.
Exactly.
Anyway, and
I love speaking in metaphors. It's
another hypothetical
is of mine.
He's the only pope that can be elected the United States president.
Yeah, that's true. So
hypothetically,
finally, America can become the theocracy they've always wanted to be. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying the Democrats nominated a pope. Well, yeah, I mean the Catholics. That's a lot.
Is there a rule against the pope being a political leader? I don't know.
No, he's just gotta be 35 and an American-born citizen, right? He's American-born. That's all he needs, right? Anyway. Next, Amtrak Watch Dogs says Railroads Northeast region has a troubling workforce culture. This kind of pissed me off. This is from trains.com. This is a 4 to 5 minutes. You wanna know why the trains are shitty? The train system is shitty in the United States is because all the people at the top are taking kickbacks. That's right. Yeah, not all the people, but let's just cover this story. This is from, like I said, trains.com, and let's do a quote from the story. Sheer scale of health insurance kickback scheme shows that blatant criminal behavior was somehow normalized, Inspector General Kevin H. Winters says. Remember Trump fired all the inspector generals? What the hell was that about? Of course, he had to rehire him because that was illegal. We don't want the oversight. Why would we want an oversight? We're breaking the law.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? I mean, I've argued about this before Trump was whatever he is. But America, a lot of the government in America runs itself like a company, right? It's like, you're not a company. You can't just fire people because you're the CEO.
They're not supposed to be that. No, that's Trump. That's pure Trump.
No, I'm just saying economics, right? People, before Trump, people were arguing the post office loses money. Yeah, the post office is a service. It doesn't make money. You're right. A lot of things the government does doesn't make money. It's a service. The government is a service. It loses money. Yeah.
Well, the only reason the post office loses money is because of the Republicans, and they decided to fully fund their pension system 20 years beforehand. So they were taking all that money, and instead of improving the post office, they were dumping it into the pension system. So why would they do that to the pension system? So they can retire everybody at once. That's why. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so yeah, it's their butter scheme to get rid of the post office. So they've been scheming for years to get rid of the post office. So, you know, their buddies that own the courier businesses like FedEx and UPS can make money. Anyway, let's get back to our story about Amtrak and their mess. This is the northeast section of Amtrak, you know, does New York State and so forth. Amtrak's Office of Inspector General issued an investigative report on Amtrak on Tuesday that detailed the widespread scheme in which at least 119 employees conspired with the New York healthcare providers to bilk the railroad's healthcare plan of more than $12 million from 2019 to 2022. I want that money and I want it back. I want it in my pocket because I know my rates went up because of this. Anyway, of the 119 employees implicated, 28 retired or resigned. Why aren't they in prison? Why do they get to retire? I'm sorry. Or resigned as a direct result of the OIG's investigation. 30 left the company for other reasons. A dozen employees have been criminally charged in the case. Only a dozen, huh? The other ones are just innocent bystanders, I suppose.
Well, these are the dozen employees that were in charge right at the top, maybe.
I guess. I don't know. And 7 have pleaded guilty pending sentencing. The OIG's findings on 61 remaining active employees were given to Amtrak for consideration of appropriate administrative disciplinary action. Disciplinary action? You can just fire them. Fire a man up. Put them in jail. They're stealing. The sheer volume of employees who cavalierly participated in the scheme to steal Amtrak's funds suggested not only a serious lapse in basic ethics, but a troubling workforce culture, at least in the Northeast region, in which blatant criminal behavior was somehow normalized, Amtrak Inspector General Kevin H. Winter said in a statement. After assessing the significant number of employees involved, the case represents the largest employee conspiracy our office has ever investigated. We hope this investigation and the resulting accountability process serves as a deterrent for Amtrak employees and healthcare providers who may choose to engage in such schemes. We ask anyone who suspects or observes such fraud to report it to our Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Hotline. The employees implicated in the scheme, based in Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Connecticut, and Washington, D.C., accepted cash kickbacks from 3 healthcare providers in exchange for the use of their insurance information and, in some cases, that of their dependents. The providers used the employee-provided information to file fraudulent and questionable medical claims for services that were never provided or not medically necessary. In total, Amtrak's healthcare plan was billed over $16 million and paid out more than $12 million during the scheme. In addition to its investigative work, OIG auditors found in 2018 and 2019 reports that Amtrak could strengthen controls to better identify fraudulent medical claims sooner. The reports highlighted billing patterns indicative of potential fraud among hundreds of providers and outlined common fraud indicators similar to those uncovered in this investigation. While Amtrak addressed the OIG's recommendations in the 2018 report, this is 7 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. They found this shit 7 years ago, and Amtrak just said, the leadership of this just said, While Amtrak addressed the OIG's recommendations of the 2018 report, has taken steps to bolster its fraud awareness training and communications. 2 recommendations for the 2019 report remain open. Specifically, the OIG recommended that Amtrak implement proactive fraud detection procedures like data analytics to stop fraudulent payments sooner, as well as cost-effective fraud awareness initiatives that enable health plan members to better recognize and report potential fraud. More recently, the OIG identified healthcare fraud as one of the 4 high-risk areas in a report fraud risk Amtrak could face as it leverages significant federal investments for major acquisitions and capital projects. Yeah, maybe you ought to stop stealing money before you start trying to borrow money, huh?
That's too hard. Why would I do such a thing?
Amtrak spokesman Olivia Irvin said the railroad has taken significant steps to reduce health insurance fraud. I don't know what that means. She's just some words she put together. Amtrak strongly condemns this reprehensible act that occurred between 2019 and 2022 and is taking swift action with all active employees involved in the investigation. It's probably not a good time to continue the fraud right after the Inspector General caught all the fraud and said, here's what you got to do to get rid of it. And it's probably not a good time to step up your fraud. Let's do more fraud. They caught us. Idiots. When you get caught doing fraud, stop doing the fraud. Because they've caught you. You see how that works? They had to go to some definite investigative steps to catch you, which means they know what's going on. Anyway, you got caught, morons. While we continue to work closely with OIG to identify and stamp out fraud, we also continue to work with all your initiatives to address this issue. Amtrak has implemented other various measures to enhance fraud prevention and empower employees to report suspected wrongdoing. These efforts include increasing oversight and strengthening efforts to eliminate fraudulent schemes. Good luck with that, because I'm sure this Inspector General was not appointed by Trump or anybody in this administration. But he may have. They may have actually had an Inspector General back in 2018 that was doing his job, and he apparently was. So if you wonder why the train service in America sucks, it's because there's no corporate oversight in America, and when we let corporations do what they want to, they actually do what they want to. Anyway,
yeah, they just don't even care. And then they blame the consumer for not making enough money. And
when they get caught, they pay a fine. Yeah. And one of their executives goes to one of these country club prisons for 90 days or 6 months, and he's back out on the streets and ripping people off again within a year. Anyway.
Yep, in my hypothetical scenario, these guys are... Oh, my camera froze. My camera froze.
Technical difficulties. Doom, 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 doom.
I don't know if my camera will come back because it doesn't seem to want to. But in my hypothetical scenario, these people even want the corporation to fail, right? Oh no, our corporation failed. I guess we can claim bankruptcy and then pump and dump something else.
And of course, the health insurance providers are always the paragons of virtue, just helping them cheat, just helping them swindle money out of. And of course, you know, your taxes go up because they're supported by the government. Amtrak is subsidized by the government, and also your tickets for Amtrak go up, and the services they provide go down because hey, somebody's ripping off money, and now they've got to pay a big fine. So.
Yep. And that's why the train industry sucks in America, because of the no oversight.
No oversight. They got to share tracks with freight trains. The whole
yeah
bullshit. Yep.
All this dumb stuff they have to do. Let's see if we can.
We could fix if we were a real country. If we were a real country instead of a, collection of 52 commonwealths or whatever. That's what we are anymore. Everybody's got their own agenda.
500, what is it? Fortune 500 companies that are all controlling the government. I mean, basically.
I mean, you could lump some states together. You could just take Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, Louisiana. You just lump them together as one big glom of ignorance.
Yeah.
Low education standards, terrible economies. Right, low voting population, just everything wrong with those little banana republics down there in the South.
Well, your segue is mixed metaphor for this next story, which is coming out of France and Poland in French. I don't know why it keeps on translating to French. I really can't read French. All right.
S'il vous plaît.
France and Poland signed a treaty. The pact is intended to strengthen military ties between the two countries against the backdrop of war in Ukraine and the threat of U.S. disengagement. The treaty will include a mutual defense clause, which opens up possibilities of cooperation on nuclear deterrence, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced. This is from Le Monde with AFP. The meeting place is Nancy in eastern France. French President Emmanuel Macron and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk will sign a friendship treaty on Friday, well, they've already signed it today, strengthening the partnership between the two countries, a sign of Poland's growing influence in Europe as a key player on the eastern flank facing Russia. The two leaders were due to meet at 12:45 p.m., which has already happened because it's now 2 p.m. here, in the Lorraine city for a sequence laden with symbolism. May 9th is also Europe Day, which this year celebrates its 75th years of European integration. While in Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin attended an impressive military parade on the Red Square to mark the 80th anniversary of the victory over Nazi Germany. To be fair, everyone's celebrating that this week. That's when it happened, this week. In 1945, the camera died again. I don't know. Okay, there you go.
Oh, not again. Damn it.
We're fine. The objective of this treaty is to enshrine Franco-Polish friendship and to strengthen our bilateral partnership in security, defense, infrastructure, energy, and a whole series of other areas, explained the French presidency. The backdrop to this meeting, the war in Ukraine, which 3 years after the start of the Russian offensive, is not abating despite convicted felon Donald Trump's promise to end it, and the threat of American disengagement that is pushing Europe to rearm massively. In this context, the treaty will include a mutual defense clause, which opens up the possibility of cooperation in matters of nuclear deterrence, Donald Tusk announced before his departure for France. This clause of mutual support is the event of aggression against one of our countries in the very essence of this treaty, he said. In the event of a threat against Poland and France, the two countries undertake to provide mutual assistance, including military assistance, he said. The two countries have already concluded such a bilateral treaty in 1991, when Poland emerged from the Soviet glacis after the fall of the Iron Curtain, but less ambitious. Poland is a very important partner for that. For too long, we have somewhat neglected, acknowledged the French Minister for Europe, Benjamin Haddad, on today's RTL, who will be alongside Emmanuel Macron and Nancy. Emmanuel Macron thus intends to raise the relationship with Warsaw to the level of that already established in Germany, Italy, and Spain through the Elysee Coronarial in 2021 and Barcelona 2022 treaties. Poland is our other very important European partner. There was no reason, it is ever an anomaly, to consider that we have a privileged treaty with Germany, reinforced in the Aix-la-Chapelle in 2019, that we had raised our relationship with Italy and with Spain, but not with it, the LSE underlines. Fearing the threat from its large Russian neighbor and an active supporter of Ukraine, Poland, a country of some 38 million people, has embarked on an accelerated modernization program for its army and has become a major political and military player in Europe. Until now heavily dependent on the United States for its defense, it is deeply shaken by the climate of uncertainty generated by convicted felon Trump and ambivalence towards Europe. France, for its part, hopes to strengthen military and diplomatic coordination in the region, can no longer allow the United States to dominate dialogue with the Poles. It's also banking on a new market for its defense industry at a time when Warsaw is seeking an acquired transport aircraft, tanker aircraft, and even submarines. Warsaw, for its part, is interested in the French idea of a European nuclear umbrella, a proposal deemed very promising by Donald Tusk, who has also caught the attention of Berlin. France is the only Western European country, along with the United Kingdom, to possess nuclear weapons, though technically the Netherlands has some on loan, as does Germany. I think we all have some nuclear weapons on loan by the United States, because back during, I think, Obama's time, he made an agreement that he would de-arm, but also share the nuclear bombs with allies, right? Because it's not fair to be like, we're all allies, but I have all the nukes, it's not very equal. So he handed some out to other countries. I don't know what that's like now under Trump or even under Biden, what happened to that, but as far as I know, they're still on loan or they still exist. Maybe they took them back. I don't know.
Well, they have nuclear. They have the components to build bombs, and they know how to build bombs. So all that really is not happening is they're not building the bombs. So it isn't like they can't just step up production. I don't see the big complicated deal. They have enriched uranium. They have a nuclear power plant. So.
Yeah. I don't even know what they make nuclear bombs off anymore, because I think even the technology behind them
they've changed
is improved and gotten more, deadly, one could argue. But
more efficient ways of exterminating the population. Yay, we know how to kill. Anyway, sorry.
France is the only West. We already talked about that. The other European countries that are members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, have so far been under the umbrella of American nuclear deterrence. But in the face of transatlantic unrest, Emmanuel Macron has said he is ready to open the strategic debate on the protection of our allies on the European continent through our deterrence. And the reason, of course, that France has so many nuclear bombs is that they actually have a lot of nuclear power. So they have a lot of waste material, I think, that you can also use, and they have access to that kind of stuff. So, like I said,
Japan,
I'm not...
but they don't have a bomb, right?
No,
That's
they do.
what I'm saying.
France does.
No, Japan does not have a bomb.
Oh, we're talking about France.
France does. I'm just saying. You said France has nuclear power. It's like, yes, so does Japan, but they don't have.
Yeah.
So does Germany.
I'm just saying, France has famously been, at least in Europe, the nuclear country. Okay. Even
that's
here,
because France is part of that.
Well, I was going to say during the 90s or 80s, sometime after Chernobyl, right? Everyone had a huge anti-nuclear power thing, and everyone got rid of their power plants, but France never did. Now France is the only one who actually has a reliable, kind of carbon-neutral nuclear power system, because they're the only ones who didn't abandon their nuclear power. So.
Well, it's a good time to talk about it because Shady Vance brought it up the other day. He said Iran has nuclear, what do you call it, power plants. And there's no country in the world with nuclear power plants that doesn't already have the bomb. And somebody just went ahead and listed all the countries that have nuclear power plants that don't have a bomb, like South Korea. And
like Japan, you said, Japan, Germany. Right?
Yeah. So, yeah. Iran can't have nuclear power plants without having a bomb. Sorry, Shady Vance, you're wrong again. You should have spent some more time in college looking at your books instead of blowing a billionaire. Anyway, back to you.
Like his predecessors, he repeatedly noted, this is Macron again, that France's vital interests, which are in the basis of deterrence doctrine, had a European dimension, which could therefore include neighboring countries or even beyond. Yeah, including even Africa or the Middle East, or who else needs nuclear deterrence? Because let's be honest, the US is over there. Yeah, I know technically nukes can go into the atmosphere and go down wherever you want them to go. But in a general sense, if you're in the land where you're protecting, you care about it more, right? America is very detached from Europe and Asia and the Middle East. It's just over there somewhere. And that's why they keep starting wars in the Middle East, because it's just over there. I've never seen it myself. Which could therefore include neighboring countries or even beyond, but he also stressed that whatever happens, the decision has always been and will remain in the hands of the President of the Republic, right? Because he's the Prime Minister, not the President. Mindful of the symbolism, Emmanuel Macron and Donald Tusk will sign this new treaty in a setting steeped in history for the two countries, already linked by a centuries-old friendship. Nancy was the residence of the King of Poland, Stanislas Leszczynski, who became Duke of Lorraine after being exiled from his country, and his father-in-law, King Louis the 15th of France. The reunion of Mr. Macron and Mr. Tusk will take place on Stanislas Square, the city's architectural jewel. The signing will take place a week before Poland's presidential election on May 18th, in which Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski, a candidate for Donald Tusk's Civic Coalition, is the favorite. So they're signing this before he gets kicked. He might not get kicked out, right? Tusk might not get kicked out. But just in case he is, or whatever, we've signed the treaty, okay? And you can't take it back. No takesy-backsies on treaties, guys.
Yeah, unless you're U.S. government.
Unless you're a convicted felon, then you do that all the time, I guess.
All right, well,
give me
I
a
got
mixed metaphor for us.
Europe is like a giant birthday cake, and it's got a bunch of candles because it's a very old continent. And the United States and Russia are going around blowing out the candles on it before you get them all lit. So there you go. There's your mixed metaphor.
Blowing out all the candles.
Doesn't work for me, but I tried. Yay!
Well, you have talent with poetry and writing, and I have talent with metaphors. That's where our own strengths.
Well, I was going to use the gas can one with Vladimir Putin. I did that last week, though.
Oh, okay.
Europe is a brush fire, and while they're trying to put out the brush fire, Vlad Putin's running around with a blowtorch and a gas can.
Okay.
All right.
The next segue
reminds
me of a song.
Ooh, we're gonna We're going to start with the story we covered last week, which is, or might have been the week before, whenever. Recently, we discovered the story about the Soviet Venus probe is expected to fall to Earth today. Yeah, we talked about this. This is from space.com, Brett Tingley. Brett is all tingly with anticipation because his name is Tingley. If your name is Tingley, you're always tingly. Think about it that way. Anyway, there's a map here that shows the possible routes of this thing and where it's going to crash, and it basically covers all of Earth. So I don't know what to say about that. I mean, all of landmass Earth.
Put
right?
your bets in now. Where is it going to land? I'm betting it's going to land in the Pacific Ocean because it's the largest. It's a safe bet, not high odds.
You can probably get odds from that. Get yourself an online betting account, and I wonder if there's a place where you can just get within 100 miles and they give you, like you enter a latitude and longitude. Anyway, if you get within 10 miles, I think you get something. The latest available ground track from the European Space Agency showing possible tracks along which the failed Soviet Cosmos 482 Venus lander might fall. That's the picture caption. Sorry about that. In 1972, the Soviet Union launched the Cosmos 482 lander, a spacecraft designed to reach Venus and land on its surface. The craft never reached Venus, however. The rocket that launched it suffered an anomaly, stranding the probe in an elliptical orbit around the Earth, where it has remained for over 50 years. Well, 1972, that's 53 years. That 5-decade stay in space could come to an end today. Cosmos 482 is expected to re-enter Earth's atmosphere and possibly crash somewhere in the surface of the planet. Somewhere in the surface. Why does it say possibly crash? What's it going to do? Stay afloat? I mean, I understand what they say by possibly. It could disintegrate, but it's made to withstand Venus's atmosphere, so I imagine it's protected against burn on re-entry. So it might just end up being just like a meteorite.
Flashes out before disintegrate. You're right.
The probe consists of a 3.3 foot wide, which is not that big, 1 meter titanium shell, lined with titanium does not burn on re-entry, unfortunately, lined with thermal insulation designed to withstand the heat of entry into Venus's atmosphere. The craft weighs about 1,190 pounds or 495 kilograms, quite heavy. It is still quite uncertain just where and when the craft will fall, though it is expected to re-enter Earth, around 1:54 a.m. Eastern Time or Greenwich Mean Time, or 5:54, Greenwich Mean Time on May 10th, which is early tomorrow morning. Plus or minus 9 hours. So, 9 hours from that puts it at roughly 4 o'clock this afternoon Eastern Time. So, alright, anyway. According to the Aerospace Coordination Center for Orbital and Reentry Debris Studies, or CORDS, according to the recent tracks in the dead probe's orbital inclination of 52 degrees, a crash reentry could occur anywhere between 52 degrees north latitude and 50 degrees south latitude. That basically includes everybody except basically Australia, northern Canada. I mean, Scotland's not in it. You're not in it. It's not going to hit you're above 52 degrees north, so I'm pretty sure it can't hit you out there in the Netherlands. But it can hit the United States and virtually every place. So, however, the reentry of Cosmos 482 might not be as dangerous as other space junk falls, as it will likely reach Earth's surface as only one single object. The risks involved are lower than, for example, those created by Falcon 9 upper stage reentry, which showers multiple meter-sized objects over a large area. Dutch satellite tracker Marco Langbroek wrote in a blog post tracking the reentry of Cosmos 482. But there's no need to fear being struck by the falling probe. Well, there's no need to fear anyway. You live in fear, you're kind of, miserable. According to CORDS, after all, 71% of Earth's surface is covered in water, and much of the land on the surface is unpopulated. The odds that the probe will hit land somewhere, harmless. While the risk is non-zero, any one individual on Earth is far likely to be struck by lightning than to be injured by Cosmos 482. That is not the greatest statistic I've ever heard, because getting struck by lightning sucks. So, don't compare it to something that's just as bad.
Yeah.
Right? I have the same lottery. I have the same odds as winning the lottery. Put it that way. If it remains intact all the way to the surface, I probably have better odds of winning the lottery. Actually, if it remains intact all the way to the surface, we project a risk of 0.4 in 10,000, which falls well within the current safety threshold. I'm glad you guys got a safety threshold that you agreed upon. That's just totally arbitrary. They have no real scientific way to prove that that's a safety threshold. You just pick the number and say that's our safety threshold. There it is. Anyway, satellite trackers and astronomers have been tracking Cosmos 485 for years. Good idea. Keep tracking it because it's orbiting Earth. You know, might smack into other satellites. In 2019, there were reports that the craft might fall within a year, which didn't happen. Astrophotographer Ralph Vandenberg of the Netherlands has been captured. The Netherlands are really interested in this. Has been capturing the probe on camera for over a decade and recently captured imagery suggesting its parachute might be out while it circulates Earth. There you go, man. Its parachute might be out. Some experts have cast doubt on that speculation, however. Langebroek writes that the tail-like structure at Vandenberg's photos is likely a result of a camera, telescope shake, and atmospheric distortion. Cosmos 482 is part of the Soviet Union's historic Venera program of Venus exploration, which landed its first probe on the planet's surface in 1970 with the Venera 7 craft, and later sent back the first color pictures of Venus' surface in 1982 with the Venera 13 probe. And so there is your, that's your story about the Venus probe that's going smacking on Earth later tonight, in the middle of, while we're all sleeping, apparently.
Well,
somebody somewhere's going to like,
maybe
you're safe in Australia, you're safe in Canada,
right? Yeah.
you're safe in Scotland, you're safe in the Netherlands, but anybody between 52 North and 52 South? Yeah, I don't know. I think you're safe too, but hey, you might see something in the sky. Anyway.
Yeah, if I was looking at the sky, right? Well, that reminds me of the song.
Right.
There's a space probe waiting in the sky.
Starman by David Bowie.
Yeah, Starman by David Bowie. And he'd like to come and meet us, but I think he'd blow our minds. There's a space probe waiting in the sky. He told us not to blow it.
I've been a spaceman.
Because he knows it's all worthwhile. Anyways.
If I was about to be the spaceman, I'd be like, wait, let me get high first. Anyway. I don't want my mind blown just a regular way. I want to be like, whoa.
Yeah, let's hope there's no space probes landing in somebody's brains.
It's not very big, but it's heavy. So it's going to come smacking down, and it probably won't burn up. I'm just saying it probably won't burn up until it's going to make an impact crater somewhere.
Yeah.
That's an idea.
Maybe. A little splash. I don't who knows. Probably.
Oh, it's 70% water. 70% chance it's going to hit water.
That's why it's very high chance it'll just land in the water because of that.
That's why we cover these stories, because there's a potential for catastrophe. Anyway, for the Big Lebowski story, we're going to cover this quick story. This is we covered Steve Buscemi dying in all these movies a couple weeks ago on our Thursday 13. Today we're going to talk about one of the movies he died in. Spoiler alert. The Big Lebowski, the Coen Brothers movie starring Jeff Bridges and John Goodman. This is from faroutmagazine.co.uk. Emily Ruskanen. The Big Lebowski Theory endorsed by Jeff Bridges. I've run that theme and it works. I thought I had this theory before Jeff Bridges brought it up, but we're going to get to the story.
The theory has been shared widely in film school. Since the movie came out.
It's one of these. Yeah. It's one of these things that I noticed right away. I just wondered if the article covers it. If it doesn't, I'll get back to it. Fan theories have exploded in popularity in recent years, with the rise of internet leading to intense speculation about everything from the hidden meaning behind specific costumes in Severance to the cryptic codes in Taylor Swift's lyrics. Me and Melanie talked about this a couple weeks ago. Taylor Swift is always planting Easter eggs in her lyrics about former lovers or former people she used to hang out with or whatever. Film lovers have an endless amount of material to fuel their obsessive love for the medium, with new releases and additions to beloved franchises opening up new pools of thought and opportunities for people to analyze their favorite pieces of media. That's right, you can watch your favorite movie endlessly nowadays. However, this is very prevalent when it comes to directors with huge cult followings, with everyone from Christopher Nolan and Julia Ducournau being met with endless questions about depths of their work, something that Coen brothers are particularly familiar with after one of their films has surprisingly huge impact on popular culture. Whether it be the unnerving sense of dread in No Country for Old Men or the puzzling mysteries of the heart of Barton Fink, the Coen brothers have come to be known for their versatile yet consistently absurdist filmography. Me, for one, if I hear it's a Coen Brothers film, I'm going to watch it. I know it ain't going to be normal, right? That's what I'm watching for. With the directors exploring the existentialist subject matter that hammers in just how surreal the business of being alive is. From the series of unfortunate events in a serious man with horrible things happening for seemingly no reason, to the escalation of misunderstandings and burn after reading, their films capture the bizarre reality of human existence and a simple desire to make sense of our world. However, perhaps one of the most talked about films is The Big Lebowski, with the story containing a lot of dark subject matter despite its laid-back exterior as presented through the easy breezy character of the dude. Much speculation comes from the inherent darkness of the story, with the dude being presented with barely reacts to, remaining nonchalant in the presence of strange circumstances that make very little sense. Naturally, there have been many theories as to why this is, with Jeff Bridges even discussing one theory on how he believes there could be some credibility to it. When discussing the film, Bridges described the theory that Donnie, played by Steve Buscemi, never really existed. He said he's a figment of Walter's imagination. And I've said this, I probably said this before. I don't know, I can't take credit for it because I on the internet about it. Anyway, in the last few times I've seen the movie, I run that theme, and it kind of works, man, because the dude only one time does he ever acknowledge Donnie, and it's when he says, "Thank you, Donnie," but that's only to bust Walter's chops. He knows his friend has this hallucination, this PTSD buddy, and he loves his friend. So he humors his friend who was in Vietnam and has PTSD, which is John Goodman's character. It adds an underlying sadness to the overall story, with Donnie's death at the end of the film being one of the most startling moments from the entire film. While this death pokes holes in his theory, it could be that he died much earlier, or the dude is entertaining Walter's version of reality because he knows he is struggling with perhaps going along with the idea that he was shot when it happened much earlier. It definitely changed the tone of the film and something to bear in mind for the next rewatch. And of course, my theory sprung upon that fact that the dude never talks to Donnie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Never discusses with him, never has a conversation with him. He's just there at the bowling alley. You never see Donnie anywhere else except the bowling alley. That's another thing. Another thing in the movie that I noticed that Jeff Bridges brought up in another version of this article, which is the first thing I noticed, the team they're bowling against, Jesus' team, has 2 people. The dude's team has 3 people. Why would a league allow a 3-man team to bowl against a 2-man team? That doesn't seem like a league to me. It seems like you got the 2-man team league and Donnie doesn't exist. So anyway, there's your story. I hope you got a song about it, and I hope it's from The Big Lebowski. And by the way, I did send you a video,
I don't remember any of the songs from The Big Lebowski. To be fair, I don't watch it every other
Flowers
time.
by the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Dead Flowers by the Rolling Stones is in it. The Man in Me by Bob Dylan, or I Just Dropped In to See What Condition My Condition Was In by Kenny Rogers in the first edition.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Thanks for reminding me of all those songs. So look at that. You fell for my trap.
There you go.
Of course, your segue is going to be a bad pun. Because we need a bad pun for this culture news.
I love bad puns.
Speaking of Big Lebowski.
I gotta do the woohoo. 3 woohoos for that one.
Can cinema really threaten national security? This is from Tom Schoen on The Guardian. As always, with pronouncements by convicted felon Trump, once you have peeled away the xenophobia, removed the stew of resentment, ignored the sheer idiocy, and asterisked the possible illegality, there was a small kernel of truth into his posting on True Social last Sunday. The movie industry in America is dying a very fast death, he wrote, pointing to the nefarious tax breaks other countries gave filmmakers as a national security threat, proposing 100% tariff on films made overseas. It is, in addition to everything else, messaging and propaganda. We want movies made in America again. How would a 100% tariff on films made overseas work? Just movies shot overseas? What about movies set overseas? And who would pay? How do you impose tariffs on goods without a port of entry? Commerce is figuring it out, said a White House official. In fact, movies are listed as an exception to presidential authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which gives the president authority to address national security threats, so it is likely the lawyers would end up figuring it out if the felon plans went ahead. but many executives in Hollywood are quietly nodding agreement. It is true that Los Angeles has seen feature movie shoots days plummet from 3,901 in 2017 to just 2,403 in 2024, a 38% drop. Many major franchises such as Avatar and Mission Impossible are shot mostly overseas, where the lure of lucrative tax breaks offsets minor inconveniences such as encourages some debris shower sheep into one of Tom Cruise's paragliding set pieces. Whether Ethan Hunt's jaunts around the Lake District represent a legitimate national security threat, as opposed, say, including a sensitive war plan in a group chat, is best left to historians. Trump's vision of MAGA cinema is much like his vision of MAGA America, an attempt to turn back the clock to the 1950s when movies were still shot on a Hollywood backlot, cinema attendance was at its peak, and the U.S. flooded countries, who previously quota-restricted film industries had been devastated by war, with American films as part of the Marshall Plan. Now, this is talking about post-Europe, post-World War II Europe, right? They didn't have any infrastructure, they didn't have any equipment, so the only movies anyone could watch were Hollywood movies. They're the only people who didn't get their entire studios blown up by bombs. What we are in fact attempting to do in Europe is to create a Marshall Plan of ideas, wrote political journalist Walter Lippmann in The Cold War, a study in U.S. foreign policy in 1947.
Yeah, we have created a new Athens. Telling us what art is.
Huh? Yeah, telling us what. Only America knows what art is. Yeah. We have created a new Athens, a celluloid Athens, in which films and ideas about freedom, democracy, and self-determination are broadcast to all the world. And this is kind of how America was able to spread its kind of culture to the rest of the world, because nobody else could make their own art and culture. They couldn't afford to. They were like, I need to eat food. I don't have time to make some paintings. I don't have time to make a movie. My house got blown up.
The United States and France, right?
Yeah.
The United States and France were the forerunners of motion pictures.
Yeah.
What is it? Not forerunners. The innovators, the first people to
really. Germany also made films.
Yeah. True.
So.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's not an American invention, okay? Europe has always been attached to. You could probably even argue other places too, right? Japan was making films, China was making films, India. Everyone's been making films as soon as they were able to get a camera, okay? So yeah, America doesn't own the film industry. But during post-war times, they did own the filming industry because they were the only ones who could afford to make a film. Everyone else had no money, had no houses, had no anything to do. You know, and if they were making films during post-war, it was very documentary, very realist, you know? Very there on the street.
Understand why
in the front lines.
Hollywood does not go to other countries and other cities because they're trying to hey, we're gonna develop the economies of these local places. They're doing it because they don't. If they film in California, they got to hire union people. If they
that's what they said earlier earlier in the paragraph there, right? Tax breaks.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of people. We want people to come here to film because I think Hungary is a really beautiful place and Budapest is a beautiful city. I know we'll create tax breaks for any foreign film people so that they'll want to come here, right? This is how economies work, right? You make tax breaks so people want to go there because, hey, I can save money. I love saving money. Let's go over there.
And you don't have union rules there. Yeah. You can film,
or they do have union rules, but they're different union rules. So that is
right. And probably. You can probably pay them less, even if they do have a union rule.
Well, I'm just saying that's currency, a reason right? To do it. If the U.S. dollar is stronger than the euro, for example, right, you can pay them less on your mind, right?
I don't think either one of us will defend. Right. I don't think either one of us will defend the American movie industry because they suck. They don't have any new ideas.
I've always been anti-Hollywood. That's the reason I moved to Europe. It's like a lot of Europeans here, right? They'll be like, why did you come here if you want to be in the film industry? This isn't like the big place for that. Yeah. And I'm like, because I don't want to involve myself in Hollywood film industry. There's industries all over the planet. You don't have to pick the number one. Anyways.
And Hollywood was run by a bunch of pervs at the time. Don't forget that. A bunch of pervs running things.
As usual,
So,
the felon is playing his victor as a victim card. We're used to hearing protectionist cries from smaller countries protesting America's cinematic hegemony, not the other way around. We will become a cultural colony of the United States if this goes on, said René Clair after France signed the Bloom-Burns Agreement in 1946, which cleared some of France's war debt in return for opening up French cinemas to American films. In 1993, when Spielberg's Jurassic Park stormed into 450 cinemas, a quarter of the country's 1,800 total, French Culture Minister Jacques Toubon declared the movie a threat to French national identity and claimed that it was every Frenchman's patriotic duty to instead see Germinal, an adaptation of Émile Zola's novel about the 19th century coal miners starring Gerard Depardieu. Arriving at the general agreement on tariffs and trade talks got underway, Jurassic Park became a political football with which to confront with renewed muscle the Yankoris. Menace our country, as Liberation put it, the Yankoris. We cannot allow the Americans to treat us in a way that they dealt with the Redskins, Director Bertrand Tavernier told the European Parliament. Ooh, not using the word Redskins. Dressing up is soft power incursions as hard power threats may, at times, seem irresistible, but there's a wide gulf between perceived national security threats and the actual national security threat. The felon's proposal to make American films great again would lump the U.S. together with such isolationist, authoritarian states as China and Iran. When Avatar proved widely popular to Chinese audiences in 2010, it was pulled early off theaters to make room for a biopic on Confucius, after officials fretted its themes of resistance to imperialism could stoke unrest. In Iran last month, Maryam Moghadam and Batash Sania, the directors of the gentle romance My Favorite Cake, whose heroine is shown without a headscarf, was sentenced to 14 months in prison on charges of spreading lies with the intention of disturbing public opinion. That's right, women don't wear headscarves at home, but that's a lie. The national security apparatus of the state makes for a notoriously poor film critic. When Soviet authorities allowed John Ford's adaptation of John Steinbeck's The Grape of Wrath, 1940, into cinemas on the basis that it showed the suffering of a poor American family during the Great Depression, one audience member reportedly remarked, "They may have been poor, but at least they had a truck." It is important to remember that though France attempted to restage the Battle of Little Bighorn over the influx of Hollywood movies in 1946, they lost. And as a result, the French New Wave, as directors like Truffaut, Godard, and Rivette and Cherbourg played catch-up with a sudden glut of American movies, and fashioned their own homegrown counterpoint. What switched me to films was the flood of American pictures in Paris after the liberation, said Truffaut, who between 1946 and 56 watched more than 3,000 films by the likes of Wells, Hitchcock, and Ford that had gathered dust during the Nazi occupation. Movies have always been an international medium and market, and are only getting more. Jurassic Park may have smushed Germinal at the box office at $1 billion to $6 million, but 1993 marked another important watershed as Hollywood's foreign revenue outstripped domestic revenue for the first time in its history. Today, international markets account for more than 70% of Hollywood's box office revenue, so let's start tariffing it so we can just have all of it gone. 30% of what you want to make Hollywood, go for it. Ironically, Hollywood is one of the few places where the U.S. does not see the felon's dreaded trade deficit. According to the Motion Picture Association, the industry enjoys a $15.3 billion trade surplus. And with that surplus comes an undeniable softening of the amount of American flag waving we see on screen. Yep, they started making movies that China will like, that India will like, that Europe will like, because, hey, we are making a lot of money. So, I'm not worried. Bohemian Rhapsody had some of its queerness toned down for the Chinese market. Producers of Top Gun Maverick removed Taiwan's flag from the Maverick's bomber jacket to appease Chinese censors, but after one of the film's Chinese backers, Tencent, pulled out, it was put back, at least for the version it showed in Taiwan. You can enjoy cinematic dominance over other countries and brandish insensitivity to their respective cultures, hence the pusillanimity that overcame Sony Pictures after Seth Rogen and James Franco's 2014 comedy The Interview, about two bumbling journalists who ended up involved in a CIA plot to kill Kim Jong-un, precipitated a threat from North Korean government to mercilessly destroy anyone who dares to hurt or attack the supreme leader of the country even a bit. After Sony Pictures' computers were hacked, instead of emails between its executives dumped online, Sony backed down and withdrew the film from release, while another North Korean set comedy, Pyongyang, about an American accused of spying in the country, was quietly ditched by its production company, New Regency. The film star Steve Carell tweeted that it was a sad day for creative expression. Reminder that Sony is a Japanese company at the forefront, so they are at the hugest threat of getting bombed by North Korea. Yeah. They don't even need a nuke, right? They can send any sorts of bombs over the Japanese Sea from North Korea. So if they wanted to, right? Sony pissed us off. We're gonna bomb Japan. Okay. Is this what the felon Trump means by messaging and propaganda? Given his fondness for Kim Jong-un and his dislike of queerness, probably not. The idea of secret messaging that Americans film are forced to carry if they shoot overseas would appear to be another one of the boogeymen. I produced or overseen hundreds of movies that were shot overseas, even built studios in Australia and Mexico for that purpose, responded Bill Mechanic, CEO of Pandemonium Films, and the executive who oversaw the shoot of James Cameron's Titanic in Mexico and Mel Gibson's Hacksaw Ridge in Australia. Other than China, which offered a rigid co-production terms, no foreign government has ever even commented on any political content in any of those movies. None has ever asked for any changes and never proposed a single idea. Neither Titanic nor Hacksaw Ridge, needless to say, would have survived the tariffs. It's hard to see how so blunt a stick as 100% tariffs would serve to roll back the irreversible forces of globalization. Remember, guys, we all live on the same planet, that is Earth. Not one of us owns the culture that is humanity. When we share our films across borders, we share our experiences as humans with each other, and may even find similarities with each other. Oh no, if humans are all the same, and we all share similar experiences, we can't hate each other and start wars and be the conqueror of the planet. Oh no, this is all against the plan. We need to hate each other so we can create more diversions, and then we can do other things and fuck up all the poor people. Anyways, that's my theory of what this is, right? The more we relate to each other, the less power fascists have. Remember that. The more we are aware that we share a lot with each other, fascists can't tell us to hate each other and do things against each other.
And this country is always the fascist. They're trying to take your stuff.
Yeah.
Even though you don't have any stuff.
Exactly.
So, was that the story? Or you paused?
It is doubtful whether helping Hollywood was indeed the aim. It probably isn't. A believer in free markets, except when he isn't. The convicted felon Trump has already started to walk back his ludicrous proposal, with the White House saying that no final decisions on foreign film tariffs have been made. Hollywood is not going back to the all-American 1950s anytime soon. The celluloid Athens proclaimed by Walter Lippmann is now more like a celluloid Constantinople, increasingly international, plural, and connected. Constantinople is now not even called Constantinople anymore. The world is listening. Ran the motto of George Lucas's THX Dolby system? Yes, but the world is also speaking now, and it's Hollywood's turn to listen. So there's my longest article of today about how, culture. Culture is important. Sharing our experience with each other is important, and trying to block it all up in isolationism is not going to be the solution for anybody.
Unfortunately, it's just another gaslight story from Trump. He's not going to do any of this shit. My pun is he was directed. My theory is he's directed. One theory, he was directed, there's my pun part, to do this by Vladimir Putin and perform these gaslights. Well, gaslight's not a movie term. But anyway, that's my pun. He was directed to do this by Putin. But the more likely scenario is he got done watching a movie he didn't like and just got on fucking social media and just started going off and threatening to do things he can't actually do. So... yeah. Gaslight, and gaslight. That's all this was. More gaslight from Trump. Shit he's not going to do, like reopen Alcatraz or become the Pope.
It's fine. Honestly, I don't care what he's doing or if he's going to do it and it's just all gaslighting. But I think the important part of that article was about the message, right? The message that, Hollywood, they don't make $1 billion because it's not post-war anymore, and that the world also makes art, and we all share art with each other. And I think that's an important message to take from that article I just read.
Like,
don't let anybody tell you you're not allowed to watch something or read something or experience something because it's a threat to your patriotic nature or whatever. That's bullshit.
By the way, all films are propaganda, right? The ones that are really good at propaganda are the ones that you don't realize are propaganda, right? Even though all films are propaganda, they're trying to get you to film to feel a certain way. Trump wouldn't know propaganda if it bit him in the ass, right? He wouldn't, because he's not smart enough to decipher when somebody's bullshitting.
Well, the thing is, everything's actually propaganda. If you look up the definition of propaganda, it's giving somebody an argument to be like, hey, agree with me. That's propaganda. You know? Everything is propaganda.
If you go to a movie thinking it's simply telling a story, you're probably wrong. It's probably a metaphor for something, and there you go.
Yeah.
You know, you go into it and you go, maybe I'll watch that again. Maybe it is a metaphor. Anyway, there's your idiotic, long, drawn-out pun, which I depunned. And it's,
for me, it's an accurate metaphor and simile as we go into this day in history.
All right, this day in history as we kick off, try to finish our longest show of the year, looks like. In 1800 on this day, American abolitionist John Brown was born. He was born in Torrington, Connecticut. He led an assault on the federal arsenal at Harpers Ferry, Virginia, which is now in West Virginia. That was the main precipitating incident of the American Civil War, if you say so. Anyway, he was born on this day. Happy birthday to John Brown, a man who died with plenty of character. Although, you know, he did not succeed in life, he succeeded in death. In 1860, dramatist J.M. Barrie was born in Carrymere, Angus, Scotland. Best known for Peter Pan, the title character of which is an eternal boy. So Peter Pan is Scottish. 1918, American television interviewer Mike Wallace was born in 1918, so he would be 107 today. Who, while on the show 60 Minutes, became known for his aggressive and bruising style. Mike Wallace was always that, a guy who was not going to ask you a nice question. 1936, 7 months after invading Ethiopia and driving Emperor Haile Selassie II into exile, Italy annexed Ethiopia as part of the Italian East Africa. Way to go, Italy! And of course, that was Mussolini. 1939, American track and field athlete Ralph Boston was born in Laurel, Mississippi. He's the first man to jump more than 27 feet, or 8.23 meters, but 27 feet was the actual mark. So he set the long jump record. Doesn't say what year. 1958, Alfred Hitchcock's psychological thriller Vertigo, starring James Stewart and Kim Novak, premiered in San Francisco and became widely regarded as one of the greatest movies ever. Vertigo. Jimmy Stewart has vertigo, and he sees a murder, and the lady actually never died. A very complicated Hitchcock movie.
As most of them are,
the U.S. Food and Drug. Yeah, they're all the little hidden gems in them. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved the first birth control pill in 1960, and the United States just said, hey, we're going to start, women started, I'm not having 12 kids anymore. So that put the end to that.
Thank you.
Put an end to the baby factory. Birth control pill was approved in 1960. It was probably too late to prevent my brother, but it was probably too late to prevent me. My mom got on the birth control pill right after I was born, I guarantee it. Because she had 12 kids. And I know she was on the pill because I found them one day when I was a kid, and I said, what are these? And I started clicking it around, you know. It's kind of, yeah!
Don't play with those! I need those so I don't get 15 more kids.
I didn't know. I was like 7. I didn't know. Shit. Okay, back to the birth control pill. We go to 1974. The U.S. House Judiciary Committee began formal hearings on the impeachment and investigation of President Richard M. Nixon. Oh, said, I am not a crook. I am not a crook. I am just a very, very compromised individual. Anyway. 1980, the horror film classic Friday the 13th premiered. about summer camp counselors being hunted by a mass killer was released in theaters, and a huge success led to a popular franchise. So in 1980, for some reason, Friday the 13th was released on the 9th? Makes no sense. Anyway, you think they would have released it on Friday the 13th? Not May 9th? That makes no sense. It's not called Friday the 9th. In 2020, Little Richard passed away. He died at the age of 87 on this day. His hit songs in the mid-1950s were defining moments in the development of rock and roll. Tutti Frutti All Rudy, Long Tall Sally, Dizzy Miss Lizzy. He loved rhyming them words. All right. Our featured event, 1502. Fourth and final voyage of Christopher Columbus was launched on this day in 1502. Master navigator and Admiral Christopher Columbus, long considered the discoverer of the New World, set sail from Cadiz, Spain on his fourth and final voyage, hoping to find a passage to Asia. So, Chris Columbus got a lot of shit named after him, made 4 voyages. A lot of people don't know that. Howard Carter, featured biography is Howard Carter, British archaeologist, born May 9th, 1874 in Swaffham, England, and died in 1939, March 2nd, in London at the age of 64. Other birthdays today. J.M. Barrie, we covered that, the guy who wrote Peter Pan. 1870, Howard Carter, did that. Alan Bennett's birthday today, British pilot born in 1934. Albert Finney, the guy who on the movie network said, "Oh, hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore." That guy. Albert Finney, British actor born in 1936. So he's 89 today. And it's also the birthday of Billy Joel, born in 1949. Billy Joel turning 76 today. Billy Joel, the Piano Man. Way to go, Billy. Happy birthday, Billy. National Day calendars, a few things today. National Military Spouse Appreciation Day. And I know if you're in the military, you definitely better appreciate your spouse. Keeping the home fires burning. I don't know how I feel about this, but I'm just saying, man, a military spouse got to suck. I don't know if I would marry somebody in the military. I only got married when I knew I was getting out, so. The National Sleepover Day, May 9th. May 9th is National Sleepover Day, so go over to somebody's house and sleep over, whether they invited you or not. No, just kidding. That might lead to violence. National Alphabet Magnet Day. Alphabet Magnet Day. Put them on your refrigerators. Help your kids learn how to spell. Awesome. National Knockout Rose Day. No, Rose is not a person. Don't knock her out. It's a rose. I guess it's a type of rose, which all of our roses bloom. It's pretty cool. And National Homefront Heroes Day. Yeah, heroes, kind of national military spouses, if you ask me, because they're the ones that are staying home while their spouse is off in some god-awful place, doing guard duty and peeling potatoes or whatever the hell they make them do. Dig holes. A lot of digging holes in the military. You got a shovel, you got a military guy, he better be filling a sandbag or digging a hole. Anyway, those are your days. Those are your mispronunciations, your long extended articles, your extra stupid comments by me, everything that's available for the world to digest for May 9th, 2025. No food, huh? Okay, no food today. May 9th, 2025 on Before Your Sleepover.
Hey! Everyone likes to lay in a little sack and spread rumors with their friends. A nice sleepover. Is there any international UN observances today? There isn't, even though supposedly it's supposed to be European Day, but I guess it's not European Day for the UN. Maybe for Europe. The EU celebrates European Day, so celebrate European Day when a bunch of countries decided, hey, we should not have a war again. So let's make France and Germany our friends so that they can never fight each other again. You do the steel, you do the coal. That way only you have to rely on each other if you want to make any weapons. So there's your...
Do you have your segue?
I already did.
Your
segue.
Did
a metaphor. You're not listening.
Oh, okay. I wasn't listening?
Yeah, I guess so, because I said it.
Yeah, I'm dead. Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't. I was looking at something, probably.
Okay. Well, this has been Allison here from the Netherlands, and Roger, of course, from the East Coast of the U.S. as we finish off another week, another Friday. That is all the news you will be getting out of us today because, well, we're out of here. And we hope you have a good weekend. We hope that you stay safe out there, you know, keep fighting that fascism, and don't let people tell you how to live. Unless the way you live is killing people. Don't do that. Don't start wars. Let's just be friends with each other. We're all humans living on the planet Earth, and that has not changed for millennia. Okay. Yep, we're gonna have our Big Lebowski mic drop moment. Take care out there.
My rug.
Forget it, Donnie.
Yep.
You're out of your element.
Walter,
You're out of your
peed on my
element.
rug.
All right.
You peed on the dude's rug.
Donnie, you're out of your element, dude.
Peed on it.
Donnie, please.
What's a pederast, Walter?
It's all the times Donnie is there, but nobody talks to Donnie.
What's starting leak like?
Life does not stop and start at your convenience, you miserable piece of shit.
I figure.
Bitch!
Oh, yeah.
I am the walrus.
I mean, it is
Poor Donnie,
suspicious
man.
Fuck up,
how
Donnie.
much he never talks to Donnie.
Ilyich
Right?
Ulyanov.
What the fuck is
He looks
talking
at him
about?
there.
They posted the next round for the tournament.
Donnie, shut the fuck. When do we play?
It's Saturday. We're down at...
Saturday.
Donnie, shut the. When do we play?
Where you going, dude?
Going home, Donnie.
Phone's ringing, dude.
The only time he talks to Donnie.
Yeah.
He lives in North
Like, look, isn't this weird that he's sitting in front of them? Maybe it's for the camera shot, but he could have been sitting in the middle,
Near the In-N-Out Burger.
right?
Yeah, they're not always at the bowling alley because here they're at
It should be a
the
push.
theater. But you notice that he's never with Donnie alone. Walter's always there, right?
Yeah, and he's never looking
Even
at Donnie.
watching the
He's
movie.
never staring him at the eye, and Donnie's always in like a third place, right?
And Donnie bowls a strike every time except right before he dies.
About oil, which I personally hear too.
Every time you see Donnie bowling, he throws a strike.
And there's like
except
no
for that time.
reaction from anybody.
Different from fighting in
Right.
Canopy Jungle.
No, it's just
Hang on with the
9
foot
pins
soldier.
falling.
Whereas this thing should,
I mean, it's easy to argue, oh, you know, Jeff Bridges is just high.
Piece of cake. I mean,
But,
I had an M16 Jacko, not an Abrams.
It is
fucking
suspicious that
Me and
he,
Charlie.
as an actor,
Eyeball to eyeball.
you know,
That
never
fucking
interacts with
balls.
the
Man in the
third
black
person in their
pajamas,
trio
dude.
here in the
We're
movie.
Fucking adversary.
Shut the
Who's
fuck
in pajamas, Walter?
Directly.
Fuck up, Donnie.
And I would like my undies back.
up.
This guy's gonna hurt us, Walter?
No, Donnie. These men are cowards.
We got a man down, dude.
No, Donnie!
Ah, poor Donnie.
Shot, no, dude.
He shot Donnie?
There weren't any shots fired.
He's having a heart
It's a heart
attack.
attack.
CPR, give him CPR.
I go myself, but I'm pumping blood. Might pass out. Rest easy, good buddy.
You don't hold. This is what doctors always say when they watch people die on film. Don't just sit there. Do something.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.